Committee to order. Shall we say the pledge of allegiance? I
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Rather than going through the roll call, I know that Allison will not be here, and we're still waiting on,
The new guy.
yeah,
Don't remember their name.
I do, Russ Coyle.
Russ.
All rust on the back, right?
Right.
Used to be there.
Correct. That was Kit Carson?
Yes, he is on a board of directors at Kit Carson,
Yes. and
he lives in Angel Fire, and he has volunteered to be a part of the committee, so hopefully he'll be here. Has everyone taken a look at today's agenda? That out every morning meeting? Basically, we're gonna finally approve this mission statement and then move into our committee reports and then talk a little bit more about the format and the schedule for our comp plan. So that's it in a nutshell. Do I have a consensus to approve this agenda?
Looks good.
Yeah, it's good.
Looks good? Okay. All right, welcome back, Mark. We've missed you. Have you been able to take a look at any of the stuff we've been generating over the time you've been away?
Yes.
Okay. All right, good deal. Because we're gonna be talking about it. I just want to make sure you are familiar a bit. I updated the contact sheet. This is in announcements. I've updated our contact sheet for members of the committee to include Russ's contact information. Would you like me to send that out to everyone? I can email that. Okay.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Any other announcements? No? Okay. Attila, you want to take the mission statement?
Yeah, so we've been working on a draft for a while with this, and then I made one modification since the earlier version, which was shared at the committee chair meeting, and it's the mission of the committee is to coordinate the update of the plan. And basically, it's because we are now trying to herd cats of all these different committees and their input into the plan, so I think we have a larger coordination role. And we bring a consultant on, we'd also be coordinating with the village and the consultant, and it's coordination is our key piece. The four elements though are, helping assess, look at the focus proposals, presentation of focus proposals for community development, helping the village prioritize tasks they're gonna take on, and then an implementation plan for at least a 10-year period, it may be a 2 to 5 year, then a 10-year, but that's still up for conversation.
Anyone have any discussion about that? Everybody on board? Okay, do I have a consensus to go with this?
I think we can't live with the final comprehensive mission statement. Can't live with that as written.
I think it's fine for a mission statement. It doesn't pigeonhole us into one lane.
Right.
All right. Okay, new business. Allison is not here today. We had prepared a fourth draft of the outline. Basically, the handout that we gave the chairs committee is a good format for the plan. And if anyone has any revisions to how we sorted out subjects by sections, just speak up or let me know. We'll try to get that incorporated into the draft. But at this point, at the chairs committee meeting, committee chairs meeting, that's semantics correct. We created a form. Um, that is, it's table form. And that's kind of gonna take over our original outline concept, because now we're going to look to our committees to populate this form, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So without Allison here, we'll move on. I do not have them with me, but you can note some of that. I started scribbling on it already.
That's all right.
Okay, well, let's move on to, our coordinators with the various committees. Trails Committee?
Trails Committee. We, did a site recon walk on the Frank Young extension component, which would go from, well, Frank Young Trail ends out to Allen Field and the high school. So the village is preparing a Trails Plus, Outdoor Recreation Trails Plus grant through the state for that. And, we're involved with that. We have a meeting this coming Thursday, so we will be addressing, the template and the goals and objectives at that meeting.
How does the extension go through to connect?
It's gonna follow the sewage alignment, the sewer
Easement?
easement. That's really above the wetlands. And then it gets to a pump house out there, and then the question is how does it go to and from the school? The school did a quick survey and found that 100% of the students, staff, and parents would use a trail to connect from the high school to Allen Fields. 50% are likely to use it to connect to the village to get to school. I don't know how, I don't want to think of, so it gets to get a point somewhere in Allen Fields, it should be a T intersection. Not have these two veering paths, because their kids are shortcut anyway.
How does it look across the CS Ranch piece?
150 feet,
Okay.
and the conversation we're gonna figure out is, I don't know yet, I just thought about this the other day, what surfacing would be done on that, because if it's gonna be a packed countryside path, cattle would destroy that when they move their cattle through it, so I don't know what, and I don't know what they allow either.
But they don't move cattle every day.
No, but they can
But
chew it up,
when they do, it's not like 10 head of cattle either.
no, it's hundreds.
Yeah.
So what I think we've heard is that they'd be okay with a swing gate that would stay open all the time, except for when they're doing cattle, we have to close the trail, we have to, hey, the trail's closed from whatever our day, so we can play cowboy. I think that'd be an appropriate measure.
But that sounds like it's still being fleshed out.
I think they gotta reapply for a letter from them for the third time to allow it, and then whether the village gets an easement from them or goes through a recreation use statute. You know, there's some strategies that would make their liability almost negligent.
Okay.
So I think the recreational use statute would do that first, and then if the village assumed management of the easement, that would help them as well.
Yeah, which I think would seem natural
Yeah,
if it's gonna be a trail that we're gonna have. in our
and
network.
manage and maintain, you probably won't have the easement on it.
Cool. Allen Field, so like Camino Grande is kind of like where it would end, or the parking lot.
Somewhere at the school parking lot, there's a trail at the end of the school parking lot, I get that starts to veer towards Allen Field, so somewhere connecting that, we didn't go that far. We walked the alignment, and it seems reasonable to be up above out of the wetlands.
Do you ever have to cross over the wetlands?
From that perspective, no, so you're staying on that high side of that. You're behind the businesses and the fence line behind the businesses, which could use some beautification possibly. But overall, it seems to be the priority that most people seem to have right now in the communities to connect that piece of the puzzle.
Pretty cool. Any other extensions being considered
There's a lot of things in the conversation, we're still interested in going out to Northwest Quadrant, especially if there's gonna be workforce housing out there. We know the RVers have the e-bikes and they can sure ride the e-bikes into town. to go groceries or music or Sunday activities at the farmer's market instead of driving your rigs in. So there's opportunities to have that. And then we've heard from, Councilor Weeks, who their liaison, that the folks building the condo here across from the black lot or lot 4 would like to see a trail along the creek down to the village, or at least the wetlands. And I imagine if they want that could work and they could pay for it, you probably connect it up to the library. And that'd be an okay little segment.
Have you guys had the conversation about that creek bed that runs in north, parallel to Northeast Power? It goes by by the bank? Are you guys including, or is the wetlands talking about?
The wetlands talking about that mostly.
It goes under the bank.
Yeah,
It's a
so-
drainage ditch.
Right, I just didn't know if it was in your committee or not.
No, but we've only heard about, I mean, I brought up the fact that they didn't put any silt fencing around that project, and everything was just dumping into the wetlands, and here we're trying to protect the wetlands. I kind of raised a little, some eyes on that one. But I think, we're also pursuing conversation with the Enchanted Circle Trails Association. And finding their support, maybe they can help us, revise and revisit, Angel Fire Trails plan and revisit new alignments that are surfacing all of a sudden and see what the priorities are for the next couple of years. Angel, their organization their model was that they were hoping that Angel Fire and Eagle Nest and Red River and the counties would all pitch in like 12,500 to keep that organization an executive director, and they would help all the communities in the Enchanted Circle move forward on their trail ideas, advance their trail projects and programs. So we've been talking to Enchanted Circle and we're nowhere near ready to go to council, make that kind of a request. Trying to figure out what would we get out of that, what we get in return for that kind of investment in the village, the Trails Association. Early conversations.
We're speaking of the trails in relation to comprehensive plan. What would we on the plan want to put in what you're presently working on doing and what your vision is, which is what you were just talking about? That certainly would be part of it, but how soon would these things you're working on currently get in place? Would it be in place before the comprehensive plan got?
The Frank Young Trail for sure, because that is a project that has surfaced over and over again over years. I think they've even applied money for that in the past. But as far as revising the trails plan and looking at connections and street crossings, those are all goals and objectives that could go into the comp plan very easily.
Yes,
Yes.
and I'm bringing that up because when I was on council before, we got a grant, part of it was federal, to take the trail on down 434 to the blinking line.
Right.
Because the concept was we were going to continue to work with Eagle Nest in trying to, first phase, get it up to the memorial. Well, the next administration didn't understand that, so they just nixed it. We wound up having to give the federal funds back. That's why those kind of things need to be in the plan. So that people can look at them and say, oh, wait a minute, I see what's going on here. Because they said, well, that's a trail to nowhere. Well, no, it isn't. It just stops part of the way.
There ought to be a revised Angel Fire Trails plan that looks at connections to the forest, connections to the greenbelt system, the cooperative management strategies between the resort and the village for managing the trail network. Maybe this idea of UTV access to 76 surfaces in there, maybe not. We've had them visit our committee, but depending on where that goes, so there's a lot of topics that can go into a trails plan. And that could be a goal of the comprehensive plan is by the year 2026, complete a trails plan that addresses these elements.
And then down the road,
Yeah. But I think the committee is not, we're looking, the first thing you guys asked us to do was to look at an assessment of the trail conditions in the village.
Mhm.
So we started that, we've had an assessment form underway. Now we're gonna start talking about how would that assessment get done? The resort was involved in reviewing that as well. For both visitor experience and risk management issues. Some of those repairs have already happened, the bridge decking on Frank Young has been repaired, some of these things are happening that they're communication. So we're underway, but we see how this thing, putting our elements in the comp plan helps strengthen the committee. It also helps with our charter statement that we want to be a long-standing committee to continue
Yes,
work after the comp plan is done and have a rotating leadership and have staggered terms, so there's institutional members within the organization.
Okay, does anyone have anything they can contribute to the wetlands? I know that since we last met, we've met by the wetlands and removed some thistle and, I just don't know that much more about the wetlands work. Anybody, Attila, do you know anymore? I know that they did some work on the creek system that comes down from the ski resort. But I'm just out of the loop.
All I heard was they're gonna do 2 work days on the Beaver Dam analogs.
Oh. Allison, are you with us?
only her name.
You're on mute, Allison, if you are.
Allison, can you there she
Yeah, I
is.
just got off mute. Sorry, takes me a second.
Okay, well, perfect timing. We were just gonna address
Oh,
the wetlands group and what they've been up to.
Yeah. Let me get this kind of organized here. You want to know what's going on with the wetlands group?
Yes, please.
Go ahead right now.
Huh. So we are in the final stages of trying to organize getting the Beaver Dam analogs installed, and those will be in the next couple weeks. We're still trying to get some very specific dates down so that we can you hear me?
Yeah,
yes.
Okay, it looks
Yes.
like it's taking time to
there is a little bit of a lag.
We're just slow.
okay. I thought there might be a lag. So I'll talk real slow. So we are in the stage of trying to get the specific dates to install the Beaver Dam analogs. That looks like it's going to be at the end of September or the first weekend or so of October. And then we are looking to do the rock work that is in Ski Hill Creek near where the new condos are going in. And we're going to be doing that starting, I believe, October 21st. And so, but the time we're going to need volunteers is for getting the willows trimmed and brought to the site toward the end of September, and then helping to weave those willows through the posts that are going to be installed in Cieneguilla Creek. We did a volunteer work day or 2 that was on August. Oh gosh, my dates are all meshing now. Early August or late July. And we removed a bunch of thistles, and we have also sprayed in that area, which is everybody in the room pretty much knows as to be Plaza del Sol, for thistles. So that's kind of an update for now. Anybody have any questions or need other information that I need?
Allison, when the group meets, have you, asked them to look ahead at things that they might like to accomplish in the next 5 or 10 years that they might be able to contribute to the plan?
So I think the biggest things that the wetland group is looking toward wanting the comp plan to include is with respect to overall understanding and education regarding stormwater management and sediment that's coming through the village and going into the creek. And then also stormwater controls that are in place for roads and drainage.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right. Sounds like some things we can incorporate into the drainage section, and also we could probably have some input for Kurt Epler for some town hall education.
Absolutely. Now, to let you know, also through our grant, we are planning to host a 2 to 3 hour workshop with all the property owners and village and entities, departments to discuss the very specific situation with regard to stormwater management in the village. And that is part of our grant. And that's probably going to be next June-ish timeframe. So
Okay.
Which property owners? Those along this creek? Which ones?
anyone's that were willing to come to the meeting, we would really like to get property management entities, anybody who lives or has a property along any of the creeks, anybody that has to do with, deal with drainage, and the village for sure, departments and the resort, all of the above. Anybody who's interested.
And Mark may be able to answer this more. I know that you said that the resort has gone out for a grant to work on the wetlands area that's in the resort area. Do we know what all that's going to include, Mark? If the grant is,
Yeah, Bill, I'm not sure about that at all. Certainly not enough to kind of discuss it here in an open forum. That is not something that I personally have worked on. So I'd need to get back to you on that, which I'm happy to try to do.
well, as this plan begins to come together in another 6 to 8 months, what the resort is doing needs to be incorporated into this plan, I think, because it all works together.
Yeah, no, agreed. Unfortunately, I am just not the resort rep for this particular committee, so I'm not up to speed on it, but I can certainly try to get there between now and our next meeting.
Okay.
So, one question, Allison, will your committee also participate on the Streets Infrastructure Committee recommending policy about sediment management, sweeping sidewalks, sweeping streets? So you'll be
Yes.
suggesting policy ideas to that committee as well, because a lot of it will fall under their purview.
Allison
Yes.
is a liaison for
Okay.
both, so handy. Okay. Anyone else on wetlands? Okay, next topic is infrastructure. Allison and I have been doing some things with that. Let's see, what day was it? Friday? We met with Kurt Epler and the manager of this treatment plant, Arwen, and I didn't catch Arwen's last name. Does anyone know Arwen's name?
Just known as Arwen.
Okay, all right. So,
Hard.
did you get it? Okay, well, you can tell me later. So we initially started in their offices and took a look at their maps on the walls, trying to get a feel for where the existing sanitary sewer trunk lines are located and collection system. We discussed some of the issues associated with the existing system and the existing septic systems around the community. Talked about some of the old aging systems with small drain fields. They talked about their priority would be the Monteverde Lake development area to, because those areas are not only, not served by sewer collection system, but they also have undersized water lines. And, we talked a little bit about how with so many homes in the village being used as short-term rentals, they find that there are large occupancies for seasonal use that overtax the septic systems for those places, and then they've got issues. So those are the kinds of things that are driving the priority system for extending sewer lines and upgrading water. We talked about the approximate costs of a new septic system. We talked a little bit about the appropriate size for lots for a septic system. We believe that it might be a good idea for public information about septic system use, particularly for the property management groups, to hand out for the short-term rentals so that the people that are using them while they're occupied there, that they have an understanding of how the septic system limitations, what they might be and what red flags there might be for plumbing issues associated with those properties. We also reiterated the effect, it might be effective to have a town hall meeting just for the general population to understand the limitations of the septic systems and proper septic system management. I apologize for my voice, guys. Let's see, what else did we talk about that day? Okay. After we had that general discussion, it was Bill and Allison and I and Kevin from the infrastructure committee.
Oh, Riggins?
Ricketson, thank
Yes.
you.
Chuck.
Howe was there, and then it was, of course, Kurt and Arwen. After we had our discussion, and I have already typed up kind of a meeting minutes from that gathering. Allison went on a plant tour. She's more familiar with the components of a waste treatment plant, so she walked around with Arwen and took some notes, and I think she'll be summarizing that. But he explained all their upgrades that they've had, which are going to be important in the plant. Then after we met with Kurt there, we went over to his offices and sat down and met with Julie Cullen and talked about the Parks and Rec ongoing projects, things that they're looking to complete in the future. What's been going on at the community center, and maybe Attila can speak to some of those items when he comes up. And then finally, Alice and I talked with Kurt, and we had a previous meeting with him, but we were primarily talking in general about utilities. And this time the focus was primarily on drainage. And so we touched on some of the things we were just talking about siltation issues and how the ditches, the problems that he has is, not enough crew personnel, not enough equipment, not, like motor graders and people skilled enough to run the motor graders. Many of the roadways that you see in the community are not necessarily centered in the right of way. And so you might be on the tight side where you have a roadside ditch and don't have enough room to even work the ditch to create a more, a more flow-friendly ditch shape. And so that the problems are numerous. And they were hit hard this summer with one large rainfall after another. We talked about more riprap in the ditches, and it seems like a lot of the design that they're getting from the consulting firm that they use are just a blanket design idea, and it really needs to be tailored more to individual situations. That's my opinion, but so anyway, we had a good long discussion. He also I asked him if he could give me a little bit of the history. And this is something, Mark, that you might be able to help me at some other date. Started to talk about the history of the village and state how things developed through the years. I think that the previous comprehensive plan just lightly touched on that, but I'd like to touch on when the village actually took over responsibilities for different infrastructure. Also when the PID was formed and how those areas were decided upon and those kinds of things, because we have such a variety of infrastructure issues in the village. And so I think a little bit of that history tied to some dates might be helpful. I have a little bit of that already done, and maybe we can talk about that at a later date. Okay. Allison, do you have anything you want to add with infrastructure?
And
since we're
I
last
have, yes. And I apologize, my network bandwidth is minimal, so I'm probably going to be a bit choppy. But with regard to water use, we talked about loss of water through leaks, through bubblers, through a variety of, if the tank, if they have to clear out a line, etc. But one thing I did solidify, I think, finally, and I just wanted to communicate this to everybody, is that we are getting credit for our wastewater discharge on our water rights. And I'm going to get all the data of water use by month from Arwen. He said he has that. He reports it every month to the state engineer. So I'm going to get that, and it'll help, communicate that in the comp plan, as well as help us figure out how we need to address our water use. So, but that was really good. And I think that the total amount we get in credit is around 70 acre feet per year.
No matter how much the discharge
Catch all that?
is it volume dependent on the amount of discharge?
Absolutely.
Yep.
So I don't know if I mentioned this last.
And I'll
but
tell you that wastewater.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'll just tell you that the wastewater treatment plant is in great shape. It looks amazing. Great facility. The UV disinfection that they just installed looks really good. It's functioning really well.
So I got an update from the state engineer's office on to see what's changed, if anything, from 08 to today, of what our water rights are for the village, what's junior rights, what senior rights we have. They also gave me a link to a map. There are some properties in the village that were developed prior to annexation. For example, like the end of Sage Lane, there's a mobile home there. Mobile home's not allowed, but if you look at the aerial photos, it was there in mid to early 90s before we went that far north. There's some properties on Elliott Barker that are on wells as well. So they gave me a map just that we could play around to see who's on a well, how close are they to new public mains? Because their code says if you've got access to a public main, you shall connect. It's not you may connect, you will connect. So we can look on that map to see some of the build outs that our network has developed since '08. I just haven't had a chance to play with it yet, but I think it's also helpful. There's a provision in the '08 plan that talked about our water rights. So if there's any updates to provide in that, I think we've got the data to do so. And then I talked to the chief of police this morning about our code enforcement officer. He is working with the streets department. He's working with Kurt directly on the culverts in our network systems on how they connect to our streets. And so we're confirming that actually a permit was issued for these culverts. If it's one that requires a grate rather than a culvert itself. So there's some ongoing practices going on in conjunction with code enforcement to address some of the issues that you brought up with respect to drainage and how they impact our roads. I don't know what that looks like yet, but it's being developed.
By Public Works?
Yes, yes. So we've now advised people that that are coming in for new construction to make sure they've got their encroachment permit or that they've got their encroachment permit prior to construction. And Kurt had made reference to this. People go in and start clearing their lot to get it ready for development. But that connection with the road, it should still be a good connection and not just
Whatever.
just bladed, just so they can get vehicles in and out. So there's some other coordination going on as well that I think is gonna be helpful.
Have y'all ever thought about, I mean, especially if it's an upslope lot,
Yeah,
having a condition of sale to put in a graded crossing?
well, I think all of the upslope lots is making sure that it's a proper type of culvert with a grade is what they're looking at right now, so.
The only problem with the grate in the driveway is if the driveway is a dirt surface or road base, it will fill with silt and then not be effective. The grate inlets work well if it's asphalt or some other, chip seal or something else. But if it's dirt driveway, then it's,
All the culverts have an issue and need to be cleaned out.
Yeah.
Regularly, whether they're graded or not.
Yeah,
I just think it's important to know that the Public Works is actually trying to get ahead of this and working with code enforcement. I do know that they're trying to make a differential between the graded slopes and then everybody else. What the details are, I don't know, but I know that they're working on that.
I don't know when the next infrastructure committee meeting is. Do you, Allison? I haven't seen them meeting. I did get Kevin Ricketson's number when we met at the treatment plant, and I'm gonna call him and just see if I can get on their Zoom calls after I leave the area in November. So,
I think Chuck told me the other day that Kevin is going to be out of town for a while. So he said, I don't know when we'll have another roads and infrastructure meeting.
okay. So I'll call him and find out what's the deal. Okay. Any more for infrastructure? I know that they've been working on the roads. They've been putting new base up on Sierra Blanca Trail, and now working on your road, right? El Camino.
the septic issue is only, it's not valley-wide, it's just in certain pockets, right? Monteberry Lake and other areas.
Well, I think overall, we've got like 130 miles of water main with 7 miles of sewer. So septic is pretty prevalent in the village.
There's houses with septic all over the place?
Oh, yeah,
Oh, okay.
everywhere.
And some of them were installed when the lot size, when it was okay to put septic on a half-acre lot. Now, the regulation is you have to have at least a 3/4 acre lot to put a septic system in, because the leach fields.
Right. I understand it.
Yeah.
I think.
Monteverde
I got
is-
this, where the sewer line ended, it turned septic, but I guess it's everywhere.
No, it's everywhere.
I think Monteverde has got other issues because of a lot of leach fields failing, a lot of septic systems failing, and it goes into the lake. I think you had to replace your whole septic system when you lived on the lake, so.
Mine's all good. I had it inspected on it and mine's all good.
Last word, if we could get the sewer line under the highway from,
Valley
and
Views.
then run into the lake, to the lift stations all the way in.
Yeah, mine varies. You got Kit Carson wanting to go in there and run new power lines. They gotta run the main all the way to Black Lake. Then the water line's gotta go in. So there's a lot of stuff down there that who knows when will happen.
Right, should we move on? Tourism and economic development, Santos?
So on tourism, I believe you're gonna see some, crossover in lodgers tax. Cause I think you've made a point of trying to get 10 new events scheduled per year. Some of them are just a continuation of previous events, but some of them are going to be brand new. I think you've geared up some staffing to help organize and march that through, which I think is great. On the economic development side, I haven't had a lot of conversations on that side of new ventures looking into the village. But that doesn't mean a lot of the events that you're trying to coordinate and organize, they still impact lodgers tax, they still impact GRT.
Yes.
So it still is an economic development, type of endeavor. I know last conversation that you shared about the 10 events, I just remember car show. That one stood out. But Trini came in this morning and talked about, Veterans Run coming up. I just don't know all the others.
We're trying to build 10 events that actually are multi-day events or significant enough that they'll drive overnight business.
Okay,
The veterans runs and those kind of things.
yeah,
That's just local entertainment, so to speak. Cool summer nights could be on the verge between local entertainment and really driving business. If I brought in bigger acts, it might drive actual business. So that's what we're looking at is scaling up our existing events to make sure they always drive lodgers tax and GRT. And then supporting all of the smaller events that may potentially grow and also drive lodgers tax.
was 10 just the number that just felt good to ramp up for right now?
Yeah, there's certain, it's basically one a month, but there's really no point in doing an event in April or November around.
Sure. Hey, I'm sorry, I did have somebody come in looking at a spa development, a week and a half ago. But it's the wrong dirt, because there's covenants that, even though our zoning map says it's commercial, covenants restricted to residential. So they were looking
Is
for,
that the one up the road here? The old one?
there's gonna be over here, by around south.
There's a property, Robin May owns it. His old house was a spa.
Oh,
It's set up as treatment rooms and then it has a kitchen in the back.
this was all outdoor spas, all outdoor soaps,
Oh,
yeah, with, maybe massage stations, but, I mean, it's a great concept, I just, seems like it's still being fleshed out.
How do you figure the water needed for multiple soaking?
So they only had like 3 or 4
Small.
soaking options. But the more I think about it, I don't know if, I just don't know how thought out it is, because there was nothing covered. And I don't know, when I ski, I get really sore after a day and the soak would be great, but there was nothing covered in this plan. So I don't know how I would, where I would change and then get to soak without a roof. So I think it's still being,
Formulated.
yeah. I think it's a good
is
idea.
clothing optional? Do you know?
I didn't get that far, just,
What, your events though, is that also looking at conferences or events at the hotel? Or is it just, because for example, I ran into a lot of mushroom hunters and one was a mycological society and they go to Sea Pub, they go to Taos and they had no idea there was so many mushrooms on top and it's like, we could bring
I
a
had
whole
no idea.
group here. for
This was a great year
conference.
for mushrooms around here.
Right.
too.
Yeah, so, but, there's probably the groups that could bring in here for events and also tie it in with other outdoor activities. So I don't know if that's also on your radar screen, or just,
It's not on my radar screen right now.
Okay.
I'm not too worried about filling the resort's conference facilities. That was my old job.
okay,
They gotta do that. So I'll bring in the events and hopefully fill their rooms. But I know meeting business is way down, conference business is way down, their wedding business is way down. They're only doing weddings at one venue now, so. Yeah, we've got to build that back. Meetings, conferences, if we're building a new facility back there, we're in a great spot to host meetings, small conferences, 200 people events on a regular basis, teachers unions, lawyers, whoever it is.
I forgot, there is another economic development note. There's air shuttle service will start this December. And
That's a big one.
that is pretty big, yes, I forgot. So I think all the conversations we've been discussing, adding that component, I think you've also heard that the county's considering moving management over of the airport to the village, which would also make things a bit more stable and secure if we're going to be having this allowance for shuttle service. So the shuttle provider is the same shuttle provider that provides shuttle service from Albuquerque to Las Cruces to Silver City, Albuquerque to Grants. I mean, so it's familiar with New Mexico geography. I think can size out its planes accordingly. And the TSA or the shuttle service at Albuquerque Sunport. So you don't go up the escalator, it's right off the escalator and you're here in 20-25 minutes.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's great. So it's not just a matter of, hey, we got the money, but we gotta wait a year. It's coming. So I think all the conversations about events and things of that nature really needs to be able to feed into how does it complement this new service? I know there's been some talk about shuttle service from the airport. For me, a good economic development tool might be, why don't we just train Uber drivers? And you generate more options for people to get up to Villa Del Rey or wherever they're housing, and you get the right vehicle to do it.
We do have Uber here.
More than one driver.
Yeah.
If we could get more than one driver, was my point. I think being able to take advantage of that is something that, I know that in Dallas, the inland port that was developed south of Dallas and, God, it's not Waxahachie, it's Wilmer Hutchins. Wilmer and Hutchins, you saw a lot of executives coming in, but then they get to Wilmer and Hutchins, there's no place to get around. And a lot of retirees, one of the young guys taught them how to, just download the app, how to become an Uber driver, and all of a sudden they weren't retired anymore. But there was this new connection of local people staying engaged and participating in what they weren't participating before. It was an economic engine driver. So maybe that's a concept we can look at here as we get closer to shuttle providers being available. And how convenient would that be? That'd be pretty convenient. That I've got a van to take your 7 people up to Peralta, instead of trying to figure out how do I get the enterprise rental out of Taos to then come back and then go up the mountain. So just a thought. Maybe that's a town hall. How to be an Uber driver.
I have something to add. I had a good meeting with Greg Ralph at his new visitor center, and I was really.
Half done.
Huh?
Half done.
Oh, no, that's okay. I got a good tour. They've got some really innovative features there. They were gonna have a interactive screen where visitors can come in and touch the screen and find out what's going on in Angel Fire today, which is a very cool thing. They are also constructing a broadcast room for podcasts that will be a good communication forum for residents and beyond. So maybe Greg can tell us a little bit more about that.
The studio's done. I've plugged in the mixing board. I've got the headphones plugged in, the microphone's plugged in, and I have no idea what I'm doing. I've watched a bunch of webinars on how to do it. I just gotta go in there and start plugging buttons and talking and trying to record things. But I'll fumble my way through it. There's other people. Matt Billingsley hosted a podcast here before. So I'm gonna tap into some of these people who've done it. And it's going to be informative, with a couple of my bad jokes mixed in just for laughter. Just, but it's gonna be mostly informative about village things that are going on. I tried to put one out every couple of weeks, we'll host them on the website, so you'll be able to go pick up old ones. But we can get into depth, I'll have interviews with various committee people and other things, so we can start spreading the word. I've also got the newsletter that we put in the water bills, that's coming out, it's been out 2 months now, I'm working on the next one. So we'll have some internal communication programs that we can utilize to tell people about all these things we have going on, to talk about issues.
What's the deal with beaver dams? Let's
Yeah,
talk about it.
exactly.
That's great.
They watch what you wish for with the beavers, because I worked on a project in Hillsborough, Oregon. It was an industrial campus, and the main boulevard through the campus was landscaped with trees and all kinds of gorgeous plant material. And then they had a detention pond to, capture the extra runoff and put in, all kinds of riparian vegetation, and the beavers came and chewed all the trees down.
Keep it all.
So it's an interesting mix with the wildlife.
I did want to interject one thing that Greg said, is that, lodgers tax money, that is a state mandated litmus test, that it be spent on things that are going to bring in more lodgers.
Right.
So it's not like it's he's doing it intentionally, that has to be spent in that manner.
I'll reiterate that.
And
Sure.
he didn't share my, pagan concept. I want equinoxes and solstices marked and having events surrounding all for it.
And we have events plugged in for those time periods,
Mhm.
so it makes sense to bring in those lunar things here. And I mentioned that we were gonna celebrate Owen's Pagan Festivals coming up.
People against put this in normalcy.
And I did say it in a public meeting, so it's on it's out there.
That would fit right in with the angle fire.
Of the 10 events, Greg, what's scheduled for the remainder of this calendar year, if anything?
Oktoberfest, the 5th and 6th,
Okay.
and then tree lighting on the 20th, the day, it's the weekend, the resort opens, it's that Friday. We're gonna do a tree lighting after that Friday, try to bring in retail as a shopping thing, promote local shopping for the people that are in town that day. Because there's nothing to do Thanksgiving weekend in town. The resort's really not open, we're gonna light the trees, try to promote retail, we have Santa Claus, we'll have some music, hopefully carolers and that kind of stuff. And then, that's the opening day of the season. Oh, and then
Calling all places.
Calling All Flakes, the Calling All Flakes bonfire and disco inferno party.
Where's that?
That'll be a big bonfire out in front of Frontier Plaza in that dirt lot, not the paved lot, the one next to it. So we'll do a bonfire there.
This is
Now,
Inferno.
That was my.
well, people can wear their old ski clothes and we get disco music and stuff. So we're just trying, this year, we're trying to put anything out there to get things rolling, to at least establish something and move things along. One of the areas I know I'm gonna have a challenge is in a small community, you rely on volunteers to help you with your events. And I don't wanna burn out my volunteers. I am going to put a recognition wall in the visitor center where we recognize, because a lot of people come in, how do I advertise in the visitor center? I don't need your money, I need to volunteer 3 days for me at different events. I'll put your name, your business name, your picture up there on that wall, and we're gonna try to host a banquet once a year where we recognize these volunteers in this community. I haven't figured out how to do that with lodgers tax dollars yet, though, because I can't buy food.
But you can pay a caterer.
You can,
Right.
No, I can't pay, they're gonna buy food.
it's just you buy meeting supplies.
Yeah.
There you go.
I didn't hear.
Okay.
So we want to encourage volunteerism in the community, recognize the volunteers and build that base as opposed to just burn them out.
Everybody finish with your economic development notes. Moving on to public works, this is somewhat redundant to what I already launched into with infrastructure. Allison, did you have anything else you wanted to add in, public works coordination? Solid waste, we hadn't
I
touched
don't
on. solid
believe.
waste.
Yeah, so my only things on solid waste are that we really need to work on our recycling options and make more available places for folks to recycle just the cans, you know, that we have in our community.
I think one of the things that Alice and I were talking
Music
about,
festival
in any event that occurs, to have
Yeah.
to have a separate can for recycling, aluminum cans. So
Exactly.
that,
simple.
at least that, I know that plastic has been investigated before and there's nobody that'll take the plastic.
Right.
But since we currently do have a collection of aluminum and tin cans, at least at events, right next to a trash can, you would have a bin that you could throw your aluminum
Yeah.
cans. That would be helpful.
Yep.
So that wouldn't be a big deal, but would be helpful.
Mhm.
Fire adaptive community is the next thing on the list.
Yeah, so the Cimarron Watershed Alliance does not yet have a contract in place with the state for our project that has been issued the CWDG $10 million grant. Cimarron Watershed Alliance released an RFP to solicit proposals from contractors, but they're in the process of evaluating their responses. But they will not move forward until they actually have an agreement in place. At the last Community Wildfire Protection Committee meeting, there were some questions asked about, well, why, if it's a federal grant, what does the state have to do with anything? Essentially, the short answer is the federal government pays the state of New Mexico to administer the project. This allows the federal government to go back to doing not much, and the state can then take a cut of the money for administering the project. There's no timeline yet, although CWA expects something from the state this fall. So hopefully that will get rolling. The only other item of note from the last committee meeting, despite some pretty clear telegraphing from this village council to the committee, that there really isn't much interest at the council level on exploring the use of biochar to deal with our slash problem. The committee has decided not to really take that advice and is continuing to kind of press forward on this. As you can probably tell, if there's no interest at the council level, I'm not very interested in it either. If anyone has spent any time researching biochar, the setting up the infrastructure for biochar production, including the I believe it's called the pyrolysis equipment, pyro, I don't know, pyro and something else. Anyway, that equipment, there is a significant charge for upfront capital on that, and then there is also a significant cost to processing the dead, down, diseased into biochar. It requires labor, energy, a lot of time, and given the sheer amount of foliage we've got to deal with as a community, there needs to be alternative methods here. I think that's the message that the council is trying to impart to the committee. But there's several members of that committee that are continuing to go down the biochar road. So if that happens to come up, that's as much as I can tell you about it. And you know, I think it's, you know, all of these committees serve basically at the pleasure of the mayor and the council, and our jobs are to make recommendations. This would seem to kind of cut against that, but nevertheless, that would be the update on that. And I am going to go right into the airport. If there's any questions on the wildfire protection committee, let me know, but I'm running out of time here. So I'll give you an update on the airport, and then quickly on the medical front as well. So if there's any questions at all on fire adaptive community committee.
Are they still working on an ordinance kind of patterned after Ruidoso?
Yeah, and we've kind of had several discussions about that. Again, the council would like that DSO ordinance to be educational in nature. We are years away from instituting a fining type framework that Ruidoso has in place. There's a lot of differences between the climate and the foliage in Ruidoso and here in Angel Fire, obviously adding fines on top of homeowners already high cost to own land here in Angel Fire is really not going to work. And so hopefully that will continue to progress. I have mentioned to the committee several times that they ought to get the village council involved sooner rather than later. It appears that there is some interest in doing that at this point. I don't think that really anyone on the committee is a statute drafter. So council ought to be involved sooner rather than later. In any event, that is still progressing. I'm just kind of going back through my notes to make sure I'm not missing anything. So no, any other questions related to all that?
No, I agree with you, Mark, about the biochar. That's just, it's almost circular now. And there's a lot of other work to do on that committee, and rather than get stuck on this one option, there's a lot of slash that is either being chipped or burned. But everything Mark said about the biochar challenges and funding and labor, it's I think taking away some of the other mission statements and work that committee needs to be moving forward on, particularly that ordinance. But I just agree with Mark on his observation.
I appreciate that, Santos, and that's one of the issues about the DSO. If we passed a DSO that is essentially a carbon copy of what Ruidoso has, and then everyone in this community were to comply with the ordinance, the village would have no ability to deal with the char. I'm sorry, the slash. So that's something we just have to kind of keep in mind. You know, we obviously all want to have a more hardened community against the wildfire threat. Anybody that lived through Hermit's Peak knows how horrible it was. Apologies, my phone's going off here. And yeah, so it's clearly important, but we've got to pass something that the community can work with, and that the village itself can handle when the citizens of the community begin compliance and thinning and all of that. So we got a ways to go. I'm not saying that the Ruidoso ordinance shouldn't serve as somewhat of a template. But there are a lot of differences between the two communities, and we need a defensible space ordinance that works for Angel Fire, not one that is just plagiarized from another community. So apologies, I am running out of time. If there are any other questions, I'm going to just give you a quick update on the airport. The airport transition committee, members of that committee created a business plan, which was a request of Commissioner Kern as a first step to moving forward, to getting it on the Colfax County Commission agenda. That business plan was approved by council at a special meeting this morning. So that business plan will be going to the Colfax County Commission, I believe either next Monday or Tuesday. I don't remember exactly. I think it's either the 23rd or the 24th. And the county will then vote whether or not to accept it. Right now, I think everyone involved, all the stakeholders, realize that the county, the Village of Angel Fire, the resort for its part, everyone is aligned and would like to see this transition happen. But we all understand that dealing with the FAA is going to be really the rate limiting step here. It's going to take a significant amount of time. And for now, the county continues to operate the airport, and that will not change for the foreseeable future. Although everything is continuing to move forward, and hopefully we won't lose any momentum on that. The only other issue the committee is recommending to council to investigate and to go out to RFP for a consultant that can help navigate the specific issue of transferring operation of the airport from one governmental agency to another. Again, it's one of those things that we just need a significant amount of expertise. There's not a lot. This doesn't happen an awful lot, so we want to just make sure that it gets navigated appropriately. Any questions at all about the airport?
Exciting.
Yeah, no, agreed. Yeah, just on the Rural Air Service Enhancement Act grant, while we didn't get the full amount of the grant, we got a significant amount of money, almost $1.5 million. My sense is that the state aviation, that amount is sort of a, let's see what they can do with it. And so hopefully when those flights get rolling here prior to Christmas, that we'll be able to pack that 9-seater both up and down to Albuquerque. I know certainly during certain periods of time, it's not going to be a problem. Other periods of time, we everybody may have to take a flight down to Albuquerque to have a nice dinner or go to the casinos or something like that. But it'll be hopefully a cheap flight.
Right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That'd be great. I've already been told I need to come down and dog sit for my boss. So yeah, and then other than that, just my one other agenda item, and I do apologize because I got to run. The just on the medical front, we had conflicting meetings last week. Thursday afternoon, I was at the Public Improvement District meeting while Dan Rakes was at the Southern District, Colfax County Hospital District meeting. And I have not had a chance to touch base with Dan. I was out on Friday and he was out this morning. So we just haven't had time to connect. So I don't know, Bill, maybe you could speak to that meeting on Thursday. If you were there, I don't know.
And I missed that one on Thursday also, but we do have another one coming up this Thursday.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll say is that it continues to be a big problem and a real concern for this community. I had some friends in town, and one of them got fairly injured up on the mountain, and so I got to experience firsthand the drive to the hospital over in Taos, the waiting, and my buddy was in a lot of pain. So it would have been nice to have urgent care right here somewhere in Angel Fire. So now I'm even more motivated than I was before to continue to assist and help, because this is a big problem for our community, and we really need to do something about it. My buddy's fine, dislocated a finger, and that was about the worst of it, but it didn't look very good when he bounced. I'll tell you that. So.
Mark, before you take off, we're gonna be
Yeah.
looking at setting our next meeting. How is
Yeah.
your availability? I was looking, I don't know if the village is open on Columbus Day, but it's the 14th.
Indigenous Day.
14th of October. It's a Monday, 3:00. Is that a good time for you?
Yeah, the only time I'm out on the 3rd and 4th of October. Otherwise, I will be around.
Okay, we're gonna try for the 14th. I don't think New Mexico observes Columbus Day, but.
Right.
please do.
Indigenous Peoples' Day they do.
Oh,
Right.
do they? Is that the same day? Okay.
Okay,
All right.
sorry, I got to run. Thanks, and I will try to get more information just related to the hospital, clinic, medical issues as soon as I can.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
All right, thank you all. Okay, thank you.
It's already taken.
No, I'm saying.
Rocky's
you're gonna
checking
go ahead and set
if
it.
that's an official holiday for the village or not,
Okay,
so he'll let us know in just a second.
okay. Allison, you still with us? She's muted.
Yes, I am. I'm just not doing video because my internet connection's really poor.
Okay, no, that's good. It's fine. Attila stepped away. Lodgers tax, we kind of talked about that already. Was there some?
The only thing to add about lodgers tax is the conversation that was started earlier about Liberty Square
Mhm.
is the idea of utilizing some of the lodgers tax, which is allowed to help finance an event center, convention center. So then it becomes a matter of where to put it.
Yes.
I'm sorry,
It is.
it is a holiday.
It's holidays.
Okay, thanks, Rocky.
Yay!
So there's a topo and boundary description being prepared for all of Liberty Square that should be completed by the end of the month. We've already talked to the fire chief about new Station 1 and where it would be placed. But the idea for an event center convention space should also be put into that after we get that finalized. Because it's substantial, I think, for the events you're trying to plan, the events we have that we seem to have outgrown the space, it should be at the forefront of that conversation. So I don't feel that lodgers tax is diminishing in any way. I think it's at or going to continue to peak. So we should be utilizing options for its funding, whether it goes back to Santa Fe.
Mm.
What did you say that would be?
You
ready?
get 2 years to use it or allocate it, or it goes back to Santa Fe. So the easiest thing to do is earmark it,
Mhm.
or else it goes back. So during COVID, the state put a waiver on that requirement because nobody was going, in fact, the governor said, don't go anywhere, right? Don't do stuff. So it's kind of hard to promote things when the governor says, don't do it, so.
Right.
Our COVID experience was different from the Texas COVID experience, that's all I'm gonna say. Bill, you had a question?
When did you say this would be ready.
By the end of the month. I saw Carl just, well, he was here when you walked in. He's
Yeah,
he's done all the. He's done all the tagging, and in fact, he's talked to Kurt, having somebody help him to pop open the lids on some of these manholes, just to verify utilities, which is good. So it should be a thorough update.
The fire department gonna run the water lines?
I think they are, yes, I think they want to do a test to make sure infrastructure is still solid.
He's tested the hydrants back there.
Oh, you already did? Perfect.
So Plaza de Sol is now Liberty Square, are they one of the same?
So the plat was actually dedicated as Liberty Square. The concept in 08 was Plaza del Sol.
Okay.
But all the official documents at the county now reference, or have been referencing Liberty Square.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
so
Did we get
we could
To vote
proceed
on the name?
with drawings, so could official drawings. Or do we need to wait to the end of the month?
Well, for me, I would feel more comfortable knowing exactly where the boundaries are and what utilities actually work before we start plugging spaces or things. Cause to me, if we put it in the wrong spot, or we put it in a spot where we think connections are good, turns out they're not. That I'd be just a little cautious.
Okay.
And let's get this in. It's another week and a half. I mean, it's coming. It's not like another month and a half. He's been out doing stakes, so that's my suggestion.
We're just ready.
And we don't want another FA1.
Allison, did you have something to add? Allison?
the name?
Sorry, the name of the what?
Liberty Square?
You can break it
Yeah.
up.
Versus Plaza del Sol.
Correct.
It's already been named.
No,
It was named in 08 or 09 when they did the
I like
plats.
Plaza del Sol.
I like Liberty Square. So there's a personal opinion for you, and we're a patriotic community.
Oh, no, it doesn't speak
I
to
just
the
think
freedom.
the naming already happened.
Yeah.
I think from this committee's perspective, you know, this evolved out of the last comprehensive plan about this need for a central place. I think the idea that we're actually moving, it feels like there's actual movement on it is great. Just making sure we keep all the pieces that were envisioned in the overall goal, keep moving forward and don't get dropped. You know, how this trail connection ties into a space that's now gonna have structures and parking in it, I think is just as important as where do we put an event space? Whether it's a tent and then it evolves into a brick and mortar spot. I think that's important, but unfortunately, I believe the name's already been stamped.
Allison, what I did notice on Bill's revision plan is that large area for a park, outdoor recreation, it was gonna be another play field. And we had thought about it being an outdoor park. I think that's going to be covered with a civic center or something of that
Music
type.
venue
Oh, a music venue, a covered
in that.
meeting
Music,
venue.
whatever.
Mhm. But the center of the roadway alignment is an open park space. And, it shows it with landscaping and sidewalks and that sort of thing. So that might be an opportunity for, some of the ideas that we had about moving, events from Frontier Park over. So looks like there's still an accommodation for that.
That's
Yeah,
even, I think,
Moses-
town hall in itself, just talk about Liberty Square.
Oh, absolutely, which is what I think how all this eventually got evolved. I think if you look at the 08 notes, they talked about, well, there were sticky notes all over on
Yeah.
one exhibit. I feel that the play fields that were originally envisioned for the space behind, and then Allen Fields got developed. I think there might have been some play with that.
That's what happened.
I just long for a city park. I mean, you know, a
Oh, yeah.
place where people
Well,
can come with
in,
their families and have picnic lunches.
in the events plan for that event center,
Mhm.
it would include 10 to 20,000 square feet of lawn. So there is, because
Okay.
most of our concerts, we wanna do outside. The tent is just when we can't, when it's fall, winter, or spring. And we have to go, it's only summers outside and then we have rain, so we wanna just have that as a backup, but the outside experience is key. So it's not gonna be just an inside auditorium, it's gonna be big, outside, landscaping, food trucks, the whole thing.
Kind of sounds like Red River's experience. You got
Yeah.
the big in front of their convention space and they kind of feed off each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah,
And you're right, you go inside when you need to, but
Yeah.
otherwise, bring a blanket.
yeah,
Yeah.
Well, and they also have the covered metal building that they can have
yeah,
a lot of their events in.
Okay.
We're just gonna do it better.
multi-use.
There you go.
Okay, Tilla, you have something else on operations and facilities, village recreation?
You probably know more than I do. I know that they submitted a grant for some more improvements at Allen Fields, but, Shay did not share that grant with the committee. Which I'm gonna bring up since the charter says we're supposed to be advising on these things, so I'm gonna bring that up. There's also some conversations about, we hear often on, this brings it right into this conversation here about skate park location.
Yep.
Pump track location. And several in that committee are of the mindset that those activities need to be forefront in center of the village. Vibrant activities happening, not out at Allen Field where it's hard to get to, there's no way to skateboard out to it, there's no way to get to it.
If Allen Fields has a direct route off the highway, the
That's
short
right.
road up
Right.
the sewer easement,
Yeah.
that the resort wants and the village wants. Now Allen Fields is a lot
It's
closer
closer,
to
I
us.
agree, right,
It's way closer to us. Having the skate park and the pump track and the recreation facilities out there near the high school, where the high schoolers are the primary users of those things
Yeah.
after school, is great. And then once we connect a trail and our events, when we're done with the event side, it's on this end of this property, right? It's to the north side of this property, so it's the closest part to Allen Fields.
there's also the argument that says, some people think right here where the old, dump your trash station was, right behind the trees, would be a great place to have a small skate park or something, because it's, people see that there's life in their village.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I
That's
like
gonna
the
be a fire
life, I like the
station.
central location,
Yeah.
but I also understand the noise that comes out of a skate park. It's a noise, they're playing loud music with not great language a lot of times, and the boards are banging constantly. A skate park is very noisy.
There's valid points there too. So, yes, I think, also brings up the Frank Young Trail. It's, most people that let's just build it. I'm the mindset, figure out how you're gonna use it. Would people skateboard to the skateboard park if that was a hardened surface? If it's a transportation trail. If it's not, then they're gonna either drive there or walk there. And then you defeat the purpose of having a trail right to it. So,
Yeah, if they can ride their bikes with their skateboard, they might do it that way.
yeah, they could.
And there's the mountain boards, ones with the bigger wheels,
Yeah.
there's some options there.
For what it's worth, in the spring, J1s were walking to Allen Fields with their soccer balls. And they were going up 434. But it's worth it.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, if people are interested, they'll find a way, but I agree, if it's more convenient, well, then you ensure more people and it's gonna be an active space. But,
We get lights out there, restrooms out there, concession stands eventually, closer road. Now, all of a sudden, Allen Field is right in town. Town has connected with Allen Field. I agree, we're too spread out.
Yeah, yeah.
And I like the centralization. I really want to see that. But if we could put all the recreation stuff in one area, it might make sense.
was that kind of what Shay was applying for, or was? it
I think she was
different?
applying for the,
Lights,
lights or concessions or both.
lights and expansion of existing fields, I think.
Okay,
And there was the infrastructure and plans for concessions too.
Gotcha.
The grants,
Yeah,
Julie went over all that.
right, yeah, she did. She mentioned the financing for these first projects, which are the field lighting and parking lot, area improvements and extension. They're doing the planning and design over this winter, 24-25, and that financing is through the acquisition of the city parks improvement grant, sports and recreation fees, and lodgers tax funding. And so, planning over winter, RFP issued in spring of next year and construction next summer. And then the next year's cycle, which she implied that she would have enough money for the next cycle as well, which would include restrooms and concession stand with the pump track, planning and design over 25 and 26, RFPs out in spring of 26, construction in summer 26. And then work beyond that would require them to seek a renewal of the state grant. So it looks like they've got money through 2026
Yeah,
plans.
and the grants will pretty much determine what's gonna be done for second, third, fourth.
And that hasn't tapped into the outdoor New Mexico grants. We haven't even touched that source of funding yet.
Yeah, the Frank Young Trail is being proposed for
So those guys are doing
Trails Plus
something that, they built the pump track in Red River, that's where that money came.
there.
Great.
Okay. Okay, skipping down to workforce housing, Santos.
So there's still development on the management side of. Once we get units, how do we get eligible people into them? An ordinance is gonna be drafted to take towards council, but it's still in draft form. I think there's some overlap between this ordinance and the short-term rental ordinance that's also being devised and still in draft. But the fact that we've actually just created a brand new title under our ordinances for workforce housing. This will be a continuation of it. And, we have still, the village has agreed to purchase or look at purchasing property for workforce housing. I believe it's, the property behind Zeb's, right?
We voted to move forward on that.
Which is great. So that's given a close proximity to this.
We've
So
made
what's
an offer,
before?
it has been accepted, and so that's moving.
So that was originally proposed for 53, 54 tiny homes.
Mhm.
Property owner was gonna build them himself and install the water and sewer mains, which is great until you, I think, realize the work required to install fire and sewer mains. There is still conversation with, State of New Mexico's DFA for funding options for the village to participate in this property with respect to infrastructure expansions, to lower the cost of development, overall development cost, to just work that in and make that in for a lower unit as far as pricing. The village has an application that's gonna be reviewed next month at DFA's, quarterly meeting, or no, monthly meeting. They required our application in August in order to get on the October schedule. There's another application that's still going to be submitted at the blinking light on the southwest corner where the Hyatt Hotel was being considered. That's about 7 acres for development, 104, originally being designed for 104 units, 40 for ownership, 64 for rental. The conversations with that potential buyer is if we could guarantee more workforce housing units, could we get a density bump in developing it? Some of the conversations with the mayor and the liaison with workforce housing is, what are we talking about? I mean, I'm not hearing it, no, we're not interested in it, and just how do we get this fleshed out? So I did get some language from them on some other density bonuses that they received in other jurisdictions and see how we can try to work that into either the provisions of the workforce housing ordinance, or we just put it in the development standards of Title IX, where we already have density standards listed. In certain zoning districts, you can get X amount if you provide X amount of units for workforce housing. So I think it's all still encouraging. We will hopefully hear something on the village's application by your October meeting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think you could summarize what you just described, just in a paragraph and send it to us? Because that way there's just no way I could keep up with all those facts.
I can do that, yes.
Okay,
So the first one was, how many units was the first one behind Zeb's?
Originally 52 to 54 units, but those were tiny homes. So I think the village in looking to buy the property is also looking to partner with somebody to develop, it's like a modular subdivision. So it's allowed 20 units to the acre, it's just under 5 acres. So you've got between 80 to 100 units that could be in theory developed. I think when the village gets some finalization, if they're gonna move forward with the offer, if the seller is interested in it, then we could start getting preliminary site layouts. But that's what it's entitled for, 20 units a acre.
Can I ask,
Finalize some buying the property and start doing that.
Yeah.
But it won't be that many houses because one of the things we want is some green area there.
Right,
So it's more of a community and not just.
which makes sense.
Good for you.
Yeah,
Including green space in that.
that makes sense. I know that the modular, group that they were talking with was like 2-bedroom units, maybe 3-bedroom units. So even though the structures may look like, there's the number of bedrooms in the inside that could be put up for rent. I think that's kind of where the village is trying to get a good bang for the buck. Makes total sense.
Allison, did you have something to add? Allison?
yeah. May I ask, where that 5 acres is generally? You don't have to tell me specifically, but I was just kind of curious.
Right behind Zeb's,
Oh, okay.
there's an L piece that goes between Zeb's and Alpine Lumber. And then it wraps around Zeb's, to like it's 4.2, 4.8 acres.
Yeah, 1.7 acres.
Oh, is that strip between Alpine and Zeb's, that's the entrance, that would be done?
So there's actually two 30-foot easements. 30 feet goes to this. There's an additional 30 feet that goes up. There was a property owner I spoke with 2 years ago. And I got him in touch with the tiny home guy because he was interested in building 83 townhomes. I said, you should talk to this guy because you're gonna need to connect to this water and sewer extension and maybe you guys could share costs. Haven't heard anything from him since. But yeah, there's 60 feet between Zeb's and Alpine. That's access and utility easements.
You get a lot of dreamers that come in your office, huh?
Yeah, that spa guy, it's just, it's a great plan. It's just,
Well,
how's it gonna work in January?
they're looking at, in fact, the work session we had, were you at the work session? The same company that's doing our water meter, which they're putting up the money up front for the water meters. We will eventually pay them, but I'm sure it'll be hopefully from the increase in our water bills. But that same company works with a company in Texas that builds modular homes, and they would do the same thing with this, which is wonderful. Now, when it's finished, then they would receive the rent, but they would also maintain all the houses. So the village would be out the property, the infrastructure, and then that company would put the big houses there. And Jay he's hot on it. He wants the first 10 houses in there this summer. Now. I hope he does.
That seems realistic to do once you get the infrastructure.
Yeah,
When the ground thaws, that does seem realistic to
this
do.
company was on Zoom with us when we had that work session, and they said we can easily do that. Not a
It's from
problem.
on slabs, right?
I don't know exactly what they put them on. They may have told us that night, that we got so much of information that night. The thing that we would have to do, and actually this company would do, is the skirting around it, because that was the thing that concerned everybody. With up here in the mountains with the temperature, it's gotta be insulated properly so that you don't have pipes freezing. And this company said, we build these modulars that we have in same type of situation in Colorado. So we know how to insulate the buildings, and then the company that's gonna set them up and manage it, they will put the skirting around it.
Nice.
So, yeah, it's almost a win-win thing for the village and for the workforce.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. Allison, information from the Night Sky Committee?
The only thing I have is what they said at our meeting with, the leaders of each committee. And that was that they had their ordinance developed and put to the council. And maybe, Bill, do you know the status of that with regard to council?
Like it's gone to
It
council.
hasn't gone to council.
It hasn't gone yet. I was trying to think to
Okay.
discuss the work session.
No.
Okay,
I would just add, I got a copy of the ordinance. It needs to go to P and Z. Because there are amendments to Title IX,
Yeah.
Title VIII, that is all within the realm of P and Z. That however it gets scheduled, it needs to go to P and Z before it goes to council.
Yeah.
So,
it's gonna be a
There's a lot of.
and to me, it makes a lot of sense of what's being proposed. Is more of the development standards from a land use perspective across zoning districts. It just doesn't, I just don't feel it goes straight to council. It really needs a P and Z over.
It seems to
before-
be a lot of community conversation on that one too, because.
I agree, and
I've
that-
already heard the developers the people running these resort, all the rentals, is it gonna affect my businesses and how the
Yes.
change lighting? So.
It does.
It does.
It will.
It does.
Yes.
So there's gonna be some.
All the street lights it affects.
Yes, they did present at the work.
Workforce?
Work for, the work, yeah, the work session.
Session.
And I had some concerns, just like you were saying, because like, if you have solar lighting on your walkway, you have to turn it off at 10 o'clock. Well, that means you gotta go out and put a bag over them or something that. And
If
the
you have-
thing about, you know how dark it is,
well,
and people walking.
is it, okay, is it lighting or is it area lighting or is down lighting, approved?
I
Because,
don't think it,
It,
with respect to what the councilman just said, it talks specifically about. Like what you would imagine around your sidewalk or going
Yes.
down your drive.
Yeah, those little LED, so.
Yes.
Yeah, they needed to be turned off at
oh
10.
my God.
And security
I
lighting.
don't
So
agree
if you
with
have
that.
security lighting on your house that's motion sensor activated,
Can't use
and
it.
it goes on after 10 o'clock at night, your neighbors can take a picture of your house and rat you out and turn you in.
To me, there's just
a
some
lot of
fundamental,
things in
Yes.
there that,
to me, there's some fundamental
Yeah.
items. Like it references lumens, which is great. That's one standard of how you measure light. But there's no definition in our code of what a lumen is. So that's why I really feel strongly that this needs to go to a P and Z review,
Yes.
which is a public hearing, and it's posted, it's on the agenda. But there are some technical details like that can't just go straight to council. We need to define what a lumen is, and it's not a crazy definition. Other jurisdictions have lumen definition. This ordinance doesn't have it, so.
it would saddle the village with replacing all the streetlights
On
on
North
North
Angle
Angle
Fire Boulevard.
within 2 years.
Mhm.
How much is that gonna cost?
Yeah.
Well, but at the same time, I've driven at 11 at night when this first came up 3-4 years ago. North Angel Fire Road is lit up like a one-way with nothing else around it.
So I guess so it's way more conversation we need with this, but will P and Z committee, will there be enough time to hear developer concerns, resident concerns about,
So
lighting in your driveway or your pathway? Will that come up? Will they have
Yes.
time to hear all that?
yes, and my envision is similar to the cannabis ordinance. When we first took it to P and Z, it was 2 or 3 meetings, because we actually had a town hall meeting to discuss the ordinance or the concepts of an ordinance, what to present. We had a timeline. The state says it shall be done by the end of December, or whatever that year was. So we started conversation September, October to make sure that we could land right in December. And we were one of the few jurisdictions that did, which was, we didn't get any credit for what it's worth. I think at a P and Z hearing level, we should be deliberate. As many meetings we need to have, so that it's not rushed. And there's a model that we've used. The big cannabis ordinance was that's the last big endeavor that we've had, where we had to create new sections of code. I think it would model to that.
How does lighting at Allen Fields fit?
Well,
Yeah,
I think
see,
that's
that
the
would
main
be
thing
another
too.
Turn off at 10 after the game's over, so that's
Yeah.
probably not an issue.
Well, the other thing, I attended the last airport transport committee meeting, and they're talking about, installing a beacon light at the airport that would be triggered by the pilot approaching for landing. But that,
So you can't land at 10 o'clock at night.
so, yeah.
I don't know if anybody lands at night anyway.
Well, I guess so
If
the
they're
conversation,
They might.
the conversation around is everything this is proposing, is that what the requirement is to be a certified night sky community?
I don't know that.
And so that's the goal is being, that may be what the group wants, certified night sky community. They may be pushing the envelope further than it needs to be.
What's the benefit of being a certified night?
It's what you want, the heads and beds. People come here to see the Milky Way and see the night sky without pollution.
We have,
there's
we had a
a guy-
stargazing event at the
We
lake
did, but-
Saturday that worked
But
great.
having a certified night sky community means that you're actually, I mean, this goes into this whole other place. I thought about, do we need to have a land acknowledgement statement in our comprehensive plan?
What,
Land acknowledgement statement that we're all on youth land and everything else. If we're gonna be sensitive to that. But the night sky thing, Hangman Springs did it, so people were gonna go soak in the Hangman Springs pools, and you wanna be soaking in a pool and see the constellations and the Milky Way and not be surrounded by all this lighting. So your neighbor might have lighting, so this plays into, this is an outdoor recreation destination, it's Moreno Valley, it's this great mountainscape community. So if we're gonna like the shit out of it, why would you come here?
Well, it's not, I don't think the lights here is a big problem at night yet. I don't see it.
Except if it's not managed, it will get controlled.
we have probably 15 minutes and the recorder's gonna go off. I wonder if we could
It sounds,
table our discussion on.
it sounds overall, everyone's agreed, we need more conversations.
There you go.
Yeah, I just want to know what it's
That kind
about.
of bothered me when they presented it at the work session.
Okay, if you don't mind, I want to skip to scheduling our next meeting and then get to as many things as we can complete, because I don't want to leave without having that said.
So there is a holiday on the 14th.
There is,
Yeah.
shoot. So we can either, I really want to have at least one meeting per month. And we are going to be meeting with, council, we're gonna be a part of council's work session on September 24th. So that is not going to be a comp plan meeting. That is going to be to, make our presentation as we did at the brewery. And is everybody on board with,
I'm not available.
you're not? Okay,
Unfortunately, I've got to drive to Albuquerque that afternoon.
okay. Well, I guess Allison and I and,
I'm at a soccer game for my son.
okay. Allison, you and I are gonna be pulling the weight on the presentation to council. The mayor asked for that meeting so that all the council members, and Brett Weir could, hear our presentation, so they kind of have a feel for I think she and I can pull that off. I've got your presentation.
Yeah,
The
you send what I,
24th?
the original one, all deep dive notes I have to on that.
Well, the thing that you sent me
Yeah.
for the notes,
Right,
that
okay,
works?
yep.
Okay.
Did you want to do the 21st of October?
Okay, the work session on the 24th is when you're gonna,
Yeah, that's the dog and pony show, and what we're doing.
okay.
What time yet?
We haven't.
The time is set for the 24th at 2 p.m.
2 p.m.
Yes,
Thank you.
Actually, I could zoom in on 2. At 2 o'clock, I could zoom in on the
Okay.
24th.
yes, it's gonna be a work session.
And yeah, I can zoom in on
Depending on
that.
when it is, I may be able to leave later that afternoon for Albuquerque, so 2 o'clock. I might.
Well, you can go first. That would be great. That
I'll
would
let
be
you
good,
know.
because you did a good presentation. Okay, so. What was on the 30th? Oh, the 30th is our scheduled next committee chairs meeting. So, you want to make it the 21st, in preparation for the 30th overall committee meeting. Does that sound okay?
Wait a minute.
21st?
September the 30th is one.
No, October.
October the 30th is
Oh.
our next committee chairs get together. And we're,
I won't be here then.
okay,
Okay, that's okay.
that is gonna, we're not really going to make a new presentation of any kind. It's really gonna be an exchange of information. I'd like them to start telling us what they're up to and start filling in the blanks for some of these, you know, what they've come up with. But I thought that we would try to meet with them every couple of months, so we kind of keep,
That's good.
communication. Okay, so let's go ahead and call, Allison, how are you on October 21st?
I'm wondering if we could move it up a little bit. Are you talking about our next meeting
What, do you mean
Yeah.
on date or time?
date?
Okay, the 14th, which is a Monday, prior to that is gonna be closed.
Can't do the
so-
14th, right? But we could
Right.
do the 15th?
Well, that's varying from Mondays. How does Tuesday look for people?
Since it's a holiday, it shouldn't.
It's not a holiday.
I know, that's.
Oh, that,
Since we're
Let me-
fine to a holiday being impacting us, I think the 15th might work.
okay,
At 3 o'clock,
3 o'clock on the 15th.
that'll work for me.
How about you, Allison? That's
There's no
okay?
work session? Is there no work session that day?
Not on, I haven't gotten any information on the work session that day, but that doesn't mean we're not having.
That's in October. They may not have that established yet.
Tuesday, 3 o'clock's an open date for this for this room.
15th?
The 15th at 3 o'clock is open.
Okay, let's go with that.
Okay,
Okay.
Done.
Okay, I'm going to be, leaving town November 1st. So I don't know if you guys want to stick to the, kind of a mid-week, mid-month Monday, typically still gonna work for most people.
I think that works for the most part.
Okay, well, on the 15th, we can finalize that. Okay, I wanted to make sure that happened before we depart. How are we doing? 10 minutes.
Go really fast.
Okay,
So for planning and zoning, the only big update I want to share is, P and Z made an update to the thoroughfare map that hadn't been updated since 2004 when it was adopted. And the areas identified in yellow were proposed collectors. And you'll notice that some of these collectors, particularly on the east side, aren't even within the village. They're in the county. And then on the west side, that collector that's highlighted in yellow would go through the existing RV park, through the Girl Scout Ranch to tie into Armijo. And the gentleman who owns Crestview Drive, which is right here in front of the Grand, has opened a conversation with the village to relinquish ownership of it and give it to the village, contingent upon this amendment to the thoroughfare plan. Because the idea was heavy trucks would come down this collector rather than coming down 434. They would come down and then turn left around the Grand. He's like, why would I want big trucks coming in front of the Grand? Makes sense. Why did we have a road that went through the Girl Scout Ranch and the RV park? Why would we do that? So P and Z made a recommendation to remove the segments in yellow out of the thoroughfare map. Some of the collectors that were listed as in blue as future collectors, some of them have been built out. Buckskin Road on the east side, right here, that's a collector now. It wasn't in 04. There's a connection between Buckskin and the community center right here. I don't believe the property owners on the north side of the community center would be willing to give a square foot for a new collector. That's kind of why they went to the end of Buckskin and Halo Pines. So P and Z made a motion to make this update. And finally, I'm still working with UNM. I thought I got all the addresses that they asked for. Well, then they gave me a second batch, which is fine. So we're just going through these structures that they've identified on a map but don't know what the addresses are. And in some instances, it's the garage to the house, so there is no address. Or, for example, these condos, even though they're along North Angel Fire Road, their access is Mammoth Mountain. There's no North Angel Fire Road address. Some of these, they have wellheads that it has a roof over it, as it should, but it's not gonna have an address, you know? So I've gotten through some of this today when I drove in. There's a couple more, so I'll meet with UNM this week just to update the maps. And it's gonna be an integrated GIS system. So ideally, we could put this these notes on types of roads and future collectors into a GIS system, and we're not piecemealing maps. It's all just unified.
Yeah, the village really needs a good.
Oh, I agree. Even our zoning
correct-
map
Yeah,
is
the
wrong.
correct street names, I think that should be a real priority for planning and zoning.
I did get a listing of all emergency calls issued last year from the new fire chief. Trying to break it down of how many people were insured, and also see if I can get back dates from not just last year, but prior years to show any trends. But there's over 300 service calls typically in a year, which I think is part of what Mike talked about, this public health component, showing that there is a need and a demand for it.
When we got our place, our road was improperly named, so we just went to the fire department, and they just scribbled out Philpin and wrote what we did. We want you to know if we call 911 that you can
They
find
get the right place, yeah. This to kind of also illustrate one of the key, fire ready things is if you're up on Back Basin Road, or I'm way up on El Camino, if there's something coming up the hill, I can't get down. I have to either use my Sawzall and cut through the resort gate and go down Back Basin or otherwise. So there is an ingress egress issue for this, for people who live higher up than the Ute Valley cutoff.
I agree.
And I don't know if I've ever heard anybody address that problem, of how the permanents up there would ever get off the mountain, should there be a incident.
But that leads into not just the fire adaptive committee conversation, it leads into infrastructure conversation, because you're absolutely right. I just think this map seemed rushed to get a map. I mean, if you look, Armijo, a straight line to 64, and connecting all these roads that don't even exist in the village,
Yeah.
it didn't seem very well thought out.
Is there a combo lock on that gate?
There is.
0825.
Think that's what it is?
John Kisses Burgess.
Just wanted to add one more thing.
I'll be right back.
Okay, there are a couple of items under the other
We might have saw.
that we have not assigned to people, and I've kind of taken it upon myself to look at transportation. I have a call, a phone meeting with a gentleman from the Blue Bus Transit District. I forget an acronym, but, on Wednesday, they were very interested to hear from Angel Fire. They said that we had terminated a contract several years ago, and they would always be interested to talk, so I'll be talking to him. And, as far as quality of life, I have an appointment scheduled with the people from Music of Angel Fire, and I'm gonna talk to is it Art Up? Is that their group? And try to talk to them, consideration of studio space. Maybe one of our multi-use structures would have a area for studio space. Another thing that I think this community has a lot of seniors, but we don't have a senior center. We have a community center, but maybe even an area where there could be, specifically things that would be of interest to seniors. So I'm kind of working quality of life
The
and
blue bus,
the Blue Bus.
we ran it.
You
We
ran it?
promoted it hard from the resort side, and we tried to make it work.
COVID did.
There's
And
no,
COVID.
no, it was even before COVID.
Yeah,
Even before COVID, that thing had zero
it's
occupancy.
very
It's
few.
zero occupancy on that thing. Nobody rides it.
Okay, well, I'm not gonna give up on it. I want to talk to them about it because they might be able to make a circuit around the Enchanted Circle. Angel.
They circle
Angel-
us.
Is that scenic tour?
No, just getting, because this is what I'm thinking, this is
Yeah.
thinking out loud, but even if you got them to the, blinking light, and within the village, we had an electrical vehicle shuttle that starts at the, RV park and comes down the main road, goes all the way down to the other RV park,
Uh-huh.
and just makes that trip corresponding with the blue bus coming around Enchanted Circle several times a day. All of a sudden, we've got a little bit of a connection, and you're not adding to, environmental issues. If you've got your little EV bus that can charge here, and the resort can benefit from it, and they can get people from the RV resort all the way down to play golf Okay, so I'm thinking big.
You're big. That's great.
I mean,
That's great.
so
Yeah,
anyway,
no, that's great.
you know, that was
Yeah.
somewhere. Okay,
No limit.
okay, 4 minutes.
Good.
Format for the action committee input. Allison was good enough to prepare that, and I went through, and I can copy it to everybody. I went through and made one that was blank and fairly generic. And what this is showing them the key features to add, but I don't even see this working for every group. You know, quality of life, they're not gonna be, the people that are in the arts and in the, you know, entertainment and things like that. I'm not sure that this, you know, implications if you don't do it. Yeah, well, you know,
Because they're not
right,
They're
so,
not a part of the village, I mean, of the administrative board of the village.
right. So I think this works to a certain extent. I'll copy this to everybody since we didn't get to talk about it today. But it's pretty much everything that, Allison had outlined with hers. I think that within each section, there will be a text to open that section that will give a general overview, and then we'll go into this level of details. But what I really want to have happen is I want every table in the report to be listed in a list of tables. So that so if somebody is, you know, not gonna have to thumb through the whole report to find some of the details relating to water supply or wastewater treatment. I think that that kind of organization in the report would be helpful for users. So anyway, I will copy this blank and I'll try to conjure up something for the non-infrastructure related, areas that we're gonna be touching on. And maybe the next meeting, we can actually have a little work session on that so that everything starts migrating toward the real format of the report.
I'm not seeing on this thing where the goals are. I see the actions, but actions are steps way beyond. Connect 20% more people to the sewage treatment plan as a goal. And here are the actions to get that. So we hear the challenges are that not enough people are connected to the system is the challenge. We've got a great system that's not functioning to its capacity. Those are all the issues. There's gotta be some sort of a goal
Okay,
that's measurable.
so on the, do
Right.
you have hers?
I have, this one that I printed off from the one you shared.
Oh, I want to share that. Oh, good for
It
me.
was in the email you gave me.
It was.
Send it. Okay, well, no, I'm looking at the backside of Allison's right now. He just passed a few of them around. She actually went through
Okay.
sustainability
Yeah.
goals following this is really just calling out the problems, in the table. And then goals and implementation policies, that sort of thing kind of falls out in a more, bulleted format in the back.
Okay, so I would think our group in the next 6 months should get a good fleshing out of all the challenges, existing conditions, and the goals. And I think then there ought to be, and at that point, that's when these committee chairs start talking about, well, there's some actions that we can help you with, and there's some actions you can help us with. And I think there's gotta be a lot more conversation, including the town hall approaches on how do we get to these actions? What are the priority actions?
And I think that's where these intermittent meetings, these every 2
Right.
months, those need to be more work session
Exactly.
oriented.
Right, and that's where that October meeting can be to, let's flesh out what this first, what's our task in the 6 months? What do we wanna deliver?
Yeah,
What's council's review in that? What's council's role in looking at drafts? Is it on target? Is it not on
Yeah.
target?
and that was another thing I'd hoped to talk about today. We've got so much on our agenda, it's crazy, but we need to start looking at this plan's milestones and timeline associated with presentations to the village council. So that we can back ourselves in and not get crammed in at the end.
Right.
So,
In the last 3 minutes.
also, the other thing about this table format, I almost feel like instead of these little narrow columns, we go to landscape, so we can actually spell it out a little bit more.
On ledger side paper, right?
No, we're not gonna have any foldouts in this report.
Please.
All right, well,
I think we've done quite a bit in just the last time that we've met. I mean, the conversation you guys have had engagements with Public Works and even that. I just think all the other committees and what they're doing and the actions that they're taking all still lead towards the same direction and goal we're all trying to get. And it doesn't seem like any committee is still trying to figure out what to do. Everybody seems to be engaged. And, how do we still keep that marshaled together? I think you're right, October should be a good work session meeting. And we start fleshing out these goals, so that we even get it more refined. Makes a lot of sense.
Is that gonna be a costume Halloween party, meeting? Get to wear.
if you'd like to dress up yourself, we could let us see it.
There's treats for the committee that does the most work. How's that?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I won't be at that meeting. I won't be out of town because the next day is my birthday. Halloween.
Birthday boy, wow, that's exciting. All
Ah,
right, thanks, everyone.
thank you.
We are gonna call it. 5:03.